Welcome inside this edition of Big Ten Today, presented by Gatorade. Rick Pizzo, joined by Rafael Davis. I feel like we're spending more time with each other than we spend with our respective families over the last couple of weeks. After this past weekend, during which we spent a lot of time watching hoops together, we saw a few surprises, but I think, Rafael, we are also seeing the cream of the crop rise to the top inside the Big Ten.
And a team that's rising to the top, you look at the Michigan State Spartans, and since Steven Izzo hit that N1, got the crowd energized, sometimes it's your coach, sometimes it's your best player, but sometimes it's your fifth-year walk-on that can change a season for your Big Ten team.
I love it when you decide to share a narrative, as Rafael did with that a couple of weeks ago. After that, Steven Izzo N1 said it would change Michigan State's season. He is not changing until the Spartans lose. It is time for the big story, and the Spartans didn't lose over the weekend as we recap an important road victory. Every win in this league on the road is huge. It wasn't pretty, but the Spartans got it done 61-59. Ohio State, Nebraska, Illinois, Iowa, Wisconsin, all taking care of business at home. More on Indiana, Wisconsin in just a bit, but this is amazing. That's 20 straight home wins in that series for the Badgers. It has been literally forever since Indiana has won in Madison. But we begin with the top-ranked team inside the Big Ten, your alma mater, the Purdue Boilermakers, and we start with Zach Edey. 3 consecutive games now of 30-10, and just to show how unrealistic the expectations are on the big fella, folks believe that he should just get 30-10. I don't think people out there understand how difficult, how rare it is to see a player, any player, get 30-10 once. He's done it 3 consecutive games.
I scored 26 points against Iowa, 24 points against Michigan State. In both days, the day after, I felt like I couldn't practice. I felt like I couldn't get out of bed. Just exhausted, because Zach Edey has been dominant since that Nebraska loss. And I love what he said after the game. He said he goes back to that Nebraska loss. He was upset at himself because he didn't feel like he gave maximum effort. And he's gave nothing but that since. The last 3 games, 31 points a game, 17 rebounds, almost 3 blocks, and he made 10 free throws per game since. The big fella has been locked in across the board.
I know Owen Freeman is terrific, but he is a freshman. And Zach Edey made Iowa's bigs look like they couldn't match up. Understandably so. He's the reigning National Player of the Year. He is on pace to become a 2-time National Player of the Year. But he can't do it alone. Who else on this team has stepped up as of late and needs to continue to step up for Purdue as we expect them to be the favorite in the Big Ten and likely a #1 seed in the NCAA tournament?
I look at 3 areas where guys that have really affected winning the last 3 games. One, it starts with Lance Jones. You go back to last season, Zach Edey could be dominant. He can get you 30 points. You throw the kitchen sink at him, and you expect the guards to beat you. And sometimes Purdue's guards didn't step up to the plate last season. But Lance Jones has been big time the last 3 games. He's averaged 16 points over the last 3, and he's 10-23 from the three-point line over the last 3 games. He's been aggressive. He's been getting downhill, really showing the value of himself offensively. And then you look at Braden Smith. He hasn't shot the ball well from the field, hasn't scored it well, but he's had 9 assists in the last 3 games, really controlling the pace of the offense, setting his teammates up, getting guys open shots, and being a tone setter on both ends of the floor, and then the rebounding. So you look at Caleb First, Mason Gillis, Trey Kaufman-Wren, the utility guys, even the Ethan Morton. In that Iowa game, Purdue was plus 26 on the glass, had 19 offensive rebounds, which led to 18 second chance points. That's just guys playing hard. That's guys buying into their role, understanding when they're out there just giving max effort, and that's what takes winning, especially on the road in the Big Ten.
This has been a trend for Purdue and Iowa in this series. Boilermakers have just dominated on the glass. That being said, Iowa had been on a little bit of a heater before this loss, and they're a team that with Owen Freeman, when Tony Perkins plays well, Ben Krikke obviously showed early in the year he slowed down a little bit, but he can still be a really dangerous player in this league. I don't think that this is a team that many want to see because of the way they play and their ability to score the basketball in so many different ways.
Yeah, Owen Freeman isn't going to run to Zach Edey ever again this season, maybe in the Big Ten tournament. So he's going to be better. He got into some foul trouble. He just struggled. Only 6 points, was in foul trouble all game long. Ben Cricky going up against Purdue's front line. Even with Owen Freeman in some foul trouble, he had to play some 5, so he had to battle a little bit with Zach Edey because Payne Sanford, Tony Perkins, they combined for 40. So you look at the guard spot, say they did their job, they're playing well. Payne Sanford's been playing really well over the last 5-6 games. But when Owen Freeman and Ben Cricky get going, you've seen it at Minnesota, if the guards don't make shots, they have enough inside. It just didn't work out against the best big in the country.
I have a feeling that Iowa is the team right now that is outside of the bubble that I think has a chance to make a run late in the season to potentially get on the right side of that bubble before the tournament and Selection Sunday. We saw Terrence Shannon Jr. return for the Illini, one of the biggest stories in all of college basketball after missing 6 games. Illinois was good in those 6 games. They were 4-2. We saw the development of Marcus Domask, Justin Harmon, other players like Hawkins and Guerrier having good offensive games. But we also saw the lift, Raphael, that Terrence Shannon Jr. gives this team on both ends of the floor when he's in the lineup.
Yeah, you look at Terrence Shannon yesterday, and it's 27 minutes, 16 points, 4 assists, and you go to winning time. And that final 9 minutes of the basketball game, when Rutgers was making a push, Terrence Shannon scored 11 of his 16, and he was a freight train in the open court getting to the basket. And that's where you saw where he was best. When this gets sticky and Illinois gets stagnant, he's a burst of energy in the open floor. He can get them a basket when they need it. But Illinois just seemed locked in all across the board. They understood the magnitude of yesterday's game with Terrence Shannon Jr. coming back. They had 5 guys in double figures, which I was worried about coming into that game, who would kind of lose some shots, who would lose minutes. We maybe thought it'd be Justin Harmon, but he went out and got him 18 points, 8 rebounds. And then on the other end, Illinois just gave max effort, and they just locked Rutgers' backcourt up.
To me, your point about balance is perhaps the most important takeaway from that game, because we wondered if some guys would think, well, I'm not going to get as many shots. Exactly. If Marcus Domask is going to say, well, I'm not going to be able to get 25. If Justin Harmon believes those 3-pointers that I was taking in the past, those are going to be Terrence Shannon Jr.'s. We didn't see any of that because every single one of those guys not just got the opportunities, but made the most of their opportunities because you throw Guerrier and Hawkins in there. And as you said, every single one of those guys I just mentioned in double figures.
I like what you said. They took the most of their opportunities. Yes. They score in different ways. You look at Quincy Guerrier, he had 15 points, but he had 11 rebounds, 5 of them on the offensive end. So when that shot goes up, he sees that as his opportunity to score. If I get this offensive rebound, I'm going to get a putback. You see Marcus Domask only scored 12 points in the game, took what the defense gave him, but 7 rebounds, 6 assists, was that quintessential point guard in the half court. Coleman Hawkins had a really great floor game, 12 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists. 5 steals. That's his opportunity to score. Coleman Hawkins can jump in some passing lanes, get out on a break, got 2 lobs from Terrence Shannon. And then Justin Harmon, the way he gets his, he's a jump shooter. He comes off a screen. He can drive to that right hand to the basket. All of these guys score in different ways. They don't get in each other's way, and they play together. And then defensively, where you could turn a team over 13 times like a Rutgers and get 18 points off of those turnovers, and then you dominate the paint, you dominate the glass, and you keep those guards out of transition. That's a real recipe for success. This Illinois team is built for March.
Yeah, quickly on Rutgers, you felt like they got this game to, I believe, 5 points in the second half. But they don't have that go-to guy like they've had in the past. There's no Geo Baker. There's no Ron Harper Jr. There's no Paul Mulcahy, really, a guy to kind of take over emotionally. And I think as Illinois started to pull away, we saw Rutgers players almost looking at each other like, do we have a chance to do this? And if so, who's going to be the guy to lead us?
Yeah, because Cliff had a great game. Cliff had 22 and 9. I think it was his best game of the season.
But he can't take outside shots.
Exactly. At the end of the game, it's a guard's game, and you need a guard that can have the wiggle off the dribble, that can go and make plays, that can get his own basket. And you go back to last season for Rutgers, it started to look like Derek Simpson would emerge and be that guy, especially late into the year, Big Ten tournament. He was able to get downhill to his right hand, get to his pull-up whenever he wanted to. He's got to continue to be aggressive. When he's aggressive and when he's feeling confident about his offensive game, you get Big Cliff going like he was going inside. Derek Simpson's got to be that guy to be able to come off the screen, make a play for himself, and get Andre Hyatt, Moab Mag involved.
I'll also say this. Simpson has to take better shots because there was a point yesterday where Rutgers was making that run over and over again. They were going to Cliff, and Cliff, you know the shot I'm talking about. Cliff was scoring. Simpson comes down early in the shot clock, takes an ill-advised three. Could have been a 2-point game. Illinois goes the other way, knocks down a three. It's 8. Game's over. 86-63 as they pull away late. Indiana, Wisconsin. This takes you back to Friday night. This is Wisconsin's 20th straight win at home over Illinois. We made so much over Michigan football ending its national championship streak that had been 26 years. Forget national championships. That's how long it's been since Indiana has won a road game in Madison.
That's crazy.
That is almost inexplicable. And in this one, we saw Wisconsin again. With this offense. They still play at a slow pace, but it is so efficient that they're able to drop 91 on the Hoosiers.
They just don't beat themselves, and they play the right way. No matter who's cooking, they find a hot hand. But if you're a coach, this is a dream. They were 60% from the field, 10 of 21 from three. They won the rebounding war on the glass, only 9 turnovers, and then 25 of 29 from the free throw line. That's what you want. That's perfect basketball when you look at how you want to win. But it was Max Klesmit's game. Indiana made a push in that second half. They cut the lead down to 7, and they felt like they were getting back into the game. But Max Klesmit went on a heater. He had 26 for the game, 23 in that second half, but he had 19 points straight. I don't think I've seen a performance in the Big Ten from a guy who's not a leading scorer on that team, not the number one option, go off in that way. Max Klesmit has been amazing the last 4 games.
We've talked about flamethrowers. Now, you've played with some guys who could shoot the lights out. But right now, the zone that Max Klesmit is in, I mean, you could see Indiana's coaches looking at their players, almost saying, we don't care who you don't guard, but the one guy you have to guard is Max Klesmit. And that was even during that 19 consecutive point run because Raphael, it wasn't as if he was taking wide open threes. Hands in his face, shot fakes, going to the rack, unbelievable athletic plays. Here's a guy who we basically didn't see at all in the beginning of the year. This is what makes Wisconsin so dangerous.
It's like he was in a pickup game. I've been in pickup games, and a guy is killing you play after play. Different guys try to switch and guard him. And you saw Max Klesmit draw a flagrant 2. That's the frustration he was bringing to Indiana's defenders. He was on a roll. You look at Max Klesmit over the last 4 games, 20 points a game, 12 of 16 from 3, 72% from the field overall. He's been outstanding, but it hasn't just been him. A.J. Storr has really figured out how to fit in with Max Klesmit and not have to be a guy that has to over-dribble, just being able to score in the flow of the offense. He had 15 points against Indiana. He was big. And then you look at Steven Crowell. Steven Crowell, quietly, 12 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists for the big fella. When they throw the ball inside to Steven Crowell, it's not a black hole. He's a big guy. He can take a double. He can pass out of it, make the right decision. John Blackwell off the bench, the freshman, plays like a fifth-year senior, plays like a grown man. He plays poised. He's under control, knows when to shoot, when not to shoot. He gave him 12 points off the bench. Really high energy on the defensive end, a well-rounded team.
All right, let's touch on Indiana before we wrap this discussion. I think I've asked you this question 126 times already during this basketball season. What is this team's identity? And I ask that understanding that in this game, Khalil Ware was not available, and it changes everything that Indiana wants to do on the inside. But they don't make free throws when they get fouled. They don't shoot threes often or well. They have too much talent. I've tried to figure out this team, and I can't do it.
If you would have asked me that question coming into the season, what will be Indiana's identity? I would tell you it'd be on a defensive end. I would tell you have Trey Galloway, Xavier Johnson, Malik Renew, 3 returners from one of the better defenses, not just in the Big Ten, but in the country. And Trey Galloway, Xavier Johnson should be one of the better backcourts across the country on a defensive end, and they just haven't brought it this season. You can't go on the road, give up 91 points, allow a home team to shoot 60% from the field and expect to win these games. You don't outscore teams in the Big Ten. You got to get them defensively.
Yeah, 5-6 now for Indiana in the last 11 games. This is no longer a team that we're talking about as being a contender in the Big Ten race. It's a team that we're wondering is going to be part of the NCAA field of 68 when Selection Sunday rolls around. If you weren't watching the Ohio State-Iowa women's game on Sunday, you were watching the wrong thing. To overtime we go. Buckeyes over the Hawkeyes, 192 in one of the most entertaining and exciting games you'll ever see. Cotie McMahon leading the Buckeyes with 33 points, including a couple of huge late buckets in regulation. And then Ohio State finishes it off in overtime to post a rare win over a top 5 opponent. How rare, you ask? Well, the big stat presented by Gatorade shows you that it's only the 5th time ever that Ohio State has posted a home win over a number 2 AP-ranked program. 3 of those victories coming against Iowa, the most recently on Sunday, 192 in OT. And the star of that game, and recently named Naismith National Player of the Week, Cotie McMahon, joins us from Columbus. Cotie, how good does Columbus and campus feel right now after that win that I know most of the student body probably saw?
Yeah, Buckeye Nation alone is just great. So the support around campus is just really good, and it just makes me feel good.
How big was the basket on Sunday? Because I was watching, and the way that you were scoring, it seemed like it must have looked like the ocean.
That's what it felt like, honestly. They were just kind of giving me kind of the whole paint area, and that's where I thrive, so I just took what they gave me.
What's that like for those of us who have never been the athletic version of the zone, to be in a game of that magnitude against such a great opponent and feel like everything that you throw up is going down?
Yeah, during that game, honestly, it felt good. I wasn't expecting to be that, I wasn't expecting to get as many buckets as I got, especially in the paint area because, like I said, that's where I thrive. And that's usually what teams kind of try to, limit me to. But, this game, I kind of just had open access to kind of whatever I wanted.
What was that offensive flow like to play in? Because it was so much fun to watch. You have 192 combined points back and forth and so much offensive talent on both teams.
Yeah, it was really cool. Just the way we moved the ball, the way we counted on each other. We have so many powerhouses on the floor at one time. We have people who can shoot, people who can drive, people who can just do everything. So it's really like it almost felt unstoppable for us. We got what we wanted and we got what we, planned to have.
Between you and J.C. Sheldon, you do the math, 57 points, 19 rebounds, 5 assists between the two of you combined. We had J.C. on last week, had the chance to chat with her, a fantastic player, fantastic young woman as well. What's your connection like with her both on and off the court?
Yeah, J.C.'s like probably the closest. I'm closest with her on the team. She's just very sweet on and off the court. On the court, she's just making sure that your head is always up, that you're always motivated to move on to the next play. And then off the court, she's the same way, just making sure that you're good. She's a happy person. Her energy is just always great. So it's kind of the same really on and off the court.
Yeah, how much does that off-the-court relationship help you guys? Is there almost like an ESP between the two of you that certainly the opposition isn't going to understand?
Yeah, I feel like us being close off the court kind of helps us understand each other more, too. Just like as far as like reactions, it's just little things. Like JC knows pretty much everything and can probably guess the next move that I'm going to make. Same for me. So it's just really cool that we have that relationship off the court to kind of help us be more dynamic on the court.
Obviously, the end result was exactly what you wanted, but late in the third quarter, early in the fourth, Iowa started to open it up a little. I believe they got the lead to a dozen. So what was the key for you guys to come back in that fourth quarter and eventually force overtime?
Yeah, I think the key for us was kind of just sticking to what we do. Just cleaning up the little things, like just our defense, being more in helping each other. And then as far as offense, just moving the ball. We found that when the ball would stick, that's when we wouldn't be, successful. So just making sure that we continue to move the ball and just take care of the little things on the other side of the end, just defense, rebounding, and just making sure that the hustle plays are ours.
I heard your post-game press conference, and you talked about the late end one, and you said there's just something special about getting fouled and making the bucket. Why does that feel different to you?
I don't know. It's just like, I don't know. I feel like people know that I am strong, but like once you get an and one, it just proves like nobody's stopping me. Especially seeing the ball go in and then getting the foul. It's just like I said, it's just an outer body experience. It's just so exciting to me.
So one of the biggest ones came at the end of regulation, eventually leads to overtime. Take me inside that pre-overtime huddle. What was the feeling like amongst the teammates, and what was the message, if there was a special one, from Coach McGuff and the staff?
Yeah, the staff kind of just they really leave it up to us a lot. But our message to each other was nobody wants to go in overtime, but this was a game where we had no choice, and we wanted to just put them away. If we were going to go into overtime, it wasn't going to be a close, overtime game. We were going to take the lead by a couple points, and that's what we did.
In that final 30 seconds of overtime, JC knocks down a couple of free throws to extend the lead to 8. And at that point, you have to know the victory is only 26 seconds away. Were you allowing yourself at that moment to actually enjoy what was taking place?
Oh, yeah. I was feeling emotional, probably about like the 45-second mark. It's just crazy, because we started out, I wouldn't say rough, but, we weren't as successful as we were last year from the start. We had some games where we felt like we could have won, and the outcome just wasn't what we wanted. But we've worked so hard leading up to this game and, the future games. But we've worked so hard, and just, seeing that kind of be put into place was just so emotional for all of us.
Final buzzer sounds. It's complete pandemonium on the floor in Columbus. You were somewhere amongst that group. What was going on as you were celebrating with teammates, but also with some fans, some of whom maybe you knew, but most of whom you certainly didn't?
Yeah, it was really cool. I kind of got separated from my actual team. They were at the logo. I was like kind of outside the logo, but it was cool. It was really cool just seeing how many people really truly supported us, and them being as excited as we were, and then the football team just being there for us too. They kind of stormed the court too, and were really excited for us. So the support was just amazing.
Yeah, almost 19,000 on hand to see it happen. What makes this Buckeye team tick?
Honestly, just us having each other. I mean, we don't want to do it for anybody else. At the end of the day, this is all we have. We are all we have. Buckeye Nation, they help us a lot, just always supporting us. We've had a really great outcome with our fans the past couple years. So honestly, us and then Buckeye Nation is really all we have.
All right, let's finish here. I think this game gave the opportunity, some who don't watch a lot of women's college basketball, the opportunity to see this game because it was on a national network Sunday afternoon before the NFL playoffs. And what a show you provided. What do you think this game did show to those who may be seeing Ohio State or Iowa women or women's college basketball as a whole really for the first time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, for us, it shows, the grit that we have. Our team, we don't give up. We fight to the end, no matter the outcome. So I feel like that's really what, this game kind of showed as far as for us. And in college basketball, for women's college basketball, it's just like the support and the records that we're breaking with just the attendance and just, people who are watching from all around. It's just like the game is evolving so much. The support from fans is evolving. Just the opportunity for women's basketball is evolving. So I feel like that's kind of what it showed.
No question. Well said. Well, you and the Buckeyes, a big reason why. Cotie McMahon, the Naismith National Player of the Week, 33 points in Ohio State's win over Iowa. Cotie, congratulations. We appreciate the time today. Wish you and the Bucks the best of luck the rest of the year.
Thank you.
Welcome you back inside this edition of Big Ten Today. What an amazing run for Coaches versus Cancer, celebrating 30 years in the fight to end cancer as we know it. Hundreds of millions of dollars raised for research, funding, education as the American Cancer Society continues an absolutely amazing fight in the battle to end cancer. And for much more, it is time for today's big interview as we welcome in the CEO of the American Cancer Society, Dr. Karen Knudsen, who actually joins us from Brussels today. So, Dr. Knudsen, we truly appreciate the time. We know you're on a very different time zone, but obviously this is something very important for you and for the world as we continue this discussion.
Absolutely. So thankful to be here, and our partnership with Coaches versus Cancer has just been transformative. It's exciting to be celebrating 30 years.
All right, Dr. Knudsen, I know that as part of the Coaches versus Cancer platform as a whole, this week is Suits and Sneakers Week. We'll see some of our favorite college basketball coaches wearing sneakers alongside with their suits, and it has been a remarkably successful partnership. Why do you think this particular initiative has done as well as it has?
Yeah, I think Suits and Sneakers invites inquiry. And why are the coaches wearing suits and sneakers this week? It's to raise awareness about the importance of cancer prevention and cancer screening. And right now in the United States, we know that about 1 in 2 men and 1 in 3 women over their lifetime will receive a cancer diagnosis. And we also know that early detection is key for improved outcomes. So this is an opportunity for the coaches to invite that inquiry and remind people to be their own best health advocate and to learn more about cancer prevention and cancer screening.
And I think it tells us a lot, too, Karen, about the coaches themselves. So many of them, like so many of us, has been touched in many ways by cancer, whether it be themselves, a loved one. And we get to see, because of this, a different side of these coaches, kind of the more human side, which I think, to your point, also leads a little bit to viewers watching basketball who otherwise may not have thought about this. It brings them some education and the opportunity for them to learn more about the disease as well.
Absolutely. You know, that partnership of Coaches versus Cancer is more than just about educating on cancer awareness and cancer screening. It's about actually getting people into cancer screening. Last year, we launched a new phase of Coaches versus Cancer partnerships called Set the Screen, where we put together an opportunity for coaches to talk about the importance of cancer screening and then gave a direct call to action, or 1-800 number, so that people could call in, having heard from a coach firsthand about the importance of screening, and then have an opportunity to learn where to reach out so that we can help them understand where to get screened near them.
We did discuss that a year ago, and I know that Set the Screen continues to be more than just a basketball term. Over the past 12 months, how has that worked for the American Cancer Society and for those who otherwise perhaps may not have gone to a screening that they needed?
That's right. You know, in the first year of Set the Screen, we reached more than 400,000 individuals that were educated about cancer screening, and then many thousands who reached out that we were able to actually navigate into screening plans. This is so key. The difference in survival between someone who has detected cancer while in early stage, at stage 1, is so much higher than someone who is diagnosed with more advanced disease. So I truly believe that the Set the Screen campaign, the partnership with Coaches versus Cancer, is not just educating individuals, it's saving lives.
The most visible aspect of the American Cancer Society that I think everyone sees is the fundraising arm and the ability to donate money to help with the education and with the fundraising, with the research. What other vital services is the American Cancer Society providing that folks may not see quite as often?
Yeah, that's right. You know, there's so much more to cancer survival than just having an early detection or prevention event. What is so important is to make sure that people can complete their care as planned. So we have 3 arms at the American Cancer Society. The first is to fund cancer research. This is essential. We know that we have reduced the cancer mortality rate by 33% since the high watermark in this country of 1991 through cancer research. So we must do more. But the cancer discoveries are not enough. It is essential that we get that to people. And that's what the other 2 arms are about. And the coaches are really highly engaged in all of this. One is through policy at the state and the federal level, ensuring that there are policies in place that, for example, facilitate someone's ability to be screened for cancer. So key. But our biggest arm at the American Cancer Society is directly supporting patients in 5,000 communities across the country, taking over the things that are the basic blocking and tackling of getting someone to cancer care. Last year alone, we provided almost 500,000 nights of free lodging for cancer patients and families near cancer centers, including but not limited to our Hope Lodges, where people stay free of charge during their cancer care. So that's a really important component, but also Road to Recovery, where it is that we provide transportation support to cancer patients so that they can get back and forth to care. We actually have coaches and retired coaches who are driving cancer patients themselves back and forth to cancer care. That's how passionate they are about ensuring that someone has the best possible chance as a positive outcome. Because someone who can only come to the chemotherapy unit 3 days a week instead of 5 because they don't have a ride won't have the same opportunity at survival as someone who is able to complete their care as planned. So the coaches truly help us discover these new interventions that will improve lives and save lives, but also help us get those discoveries to people.
I think you point out some interesting facts there, and we all know those who have been affected by cancer, but I think many may not know that while cancer affects all, it does not affect all races and ethnicities equally. So what can you share about that to educate people on the way that this disease affects different colors and creeds and races?
Absolutely. We address in so many ways these gaps, these disparities amongst different populations, geographic and demographic across the country. Just as an example, prostate cancer, which is the most frequently diagnosed malignancy of men in the United States and the second leading cause of cancer death, has an incredibly high cancer disparity amongst, for example, Black and white men. Black men are 70% more likely to be diagnosed with prostate cancer and 2 to 4 times more likely to die of their prostate cancer compared to any other ethnic group in the United States. These are real challenges. And so ensuring that people do understand differences in risk, differences in outcomes is so important for us to ensure that we're closing those gaps. This is why the prevention and early detection is so important. But equally important is to ensure that everyone has a developed screening plan that is appropriate for them. Screening plan for each individual is not just based on their age, but based on their medical history, their family history, their genetics if they know it, or a disproportionate risk that's known. For example, the higher risk of prostate cancer for men in this country who are of African American descent.
Dr. Knudsen, since we first spoke almost exactly a year ago, what should we know about any significant changes or trends to take place in that cancer landscape?
I'm so glad you asked. This is something that we do every year. We actually look at cancer trends across the country, and we've just reported out in this last week of some really important things for people to know. There are some wins to be had, and this is a win for cancer research. For example, we know that cervical cancer rates for women ages 20 to 24 are plummeting, 65% decline in incidence of cervical cancer amongst women of that age. Why? Because they were the first generation to be vaccinated against the human papillomavirus. We have a cancer vaccine, it works, and we really have an opportunity to eliminate cervical cancer in this country with uptake of HPV vaccination. So we are very enthusiastic about what that means. Conversely, there are things that we're watching that we don't understand that require investment in research and also some vigilance on the part of Americans to make sure that anything that seems right is being taken care of. Doesn't seem right is being taken care of. And that is early onset colorectal cancer. We're seeing a rise in early onset colorectal cancer that's sustained in this country for individuals under age 55. And in fact, we're seeing a significant rise in populations even under age 50. So this is really alarming. We cannot take the current risk factors for colorectal cancer and ascribe it to what we're seeing. There's something more that's happening. Cancer research will certainly have to be part of that solution to try to understand early onset colorectal cancer. But in the meantime, someone who's under the age of 50 and showing signs that could be related to colorectal cancer needs to be seen and potentially screened. So these are very important advances in our understanding of cancer trends that are critical for educating the U.S. public about what's coming in the cancer arena.
As we wrap things up, Dr. Knudsen, any final messages that you'd like to share with those watching who may be battling cancer themselves or watching a loved one battle cancer or just simply concerned about their own health?
Yeah, I would say absolutely. Please be an advocate for your own health. The next time that you go to the physician, irrespective of why, ask that question. What is the right cancer screening plan for me? Develop that plan and execute on that plan. Set the screen. And I'd also like to say thank you to the coaches for the many hundreds of thousands of people whose lives have been touched because of this partnership and lives saved. To learn more, please come visit us at cancer.org. All the information is there that you want to know about cancer screening as well as cancer prevention. And there's a 24/7 hotline as well for someone who wants a more high-touch phone call to discuss cancer prevention and cancer screening.
Wonderful and potentially life-saving information from the CEO of the American Cancer Society, Dr. Karen Knudsen. Dr. Knudsen, we truly appreciate you taking the time to share all this vital information with us here during Suits and Sneakers Week.
Absolutely. Looking forward to seeing all those suits and sneakers out there.
Rayfel's excited because we're back to Michigan State, which means at some point during this conversation, he gets to bring up the Steven Izzo three-pointer that, according to him, changed the course of the season for Michigan State. In all seriousness, Spartans have won 8 of 10, third straight, comes on Sunday on the road against Maryland. Tom Izzo saying afterwards, it was not pretty, but I'll take an ugly win over a pretty loss any day, and that's exactly what it was. You hold the Terps to under 60 in College Park, where they by far play their best. I think a lot of folks left Michigan State for dead. And then we look back at their losses. The losses aren't that bad. Yep. Look at their standing in the net. They're way higher than you would expect them to be. They're in almost every bracketologist's field of 68. And this is a team that, if they figure things out, and I know it's January, so it's hard to still say if they figure things out, this is a team that could potentially run the table.
No, for sure. You look at how they played on the road in a tough environment, because I look at Coach Izzo, and he looked frustrated after that game. I know it's an ugly loss, but sometimes the ugly losses on the road against good teams feel better than the pretty losses at home.
Yeah.
This win at Maryland feels way better than a 30-point win at home in a non-conference, because guys have to figure out how to win in crunch time, and that's what Michigan State did. They had a big lead, they let it go away, but at the end of the day, they found out how to win. You go on the road in the Big Ten, you got to take care of the basketball, and that's how Maryland wants to beat you. They want to turn you over, get them out in transition. Michigan State didn't help them. Michigan State only 8 turnovers for the game. That's huge. And then defensively, they flipped it on Maryland. They forced 18 Maryland turnovers, scored 19 points off of those, and then they looked like Michigan State in that second half, and even in the first half. 3 or 4 possessions where they scored the basketball under 4 seconds.
I know you and I agree that, to me, they look the most like Michigan State when Trey Holloman's on the floor.
Yes.
He had 12 points coming off the bench in the first half. I know Tom Izzo. You know he relies and truly loves his veterans.
Yep.
But you have to wonder if it's time for Trey Holloman to get some more minutes, which would probably come at the expense of either A.J. Hoggard and or Jaden Akins.
Yeah, you even go back to that Rutgers game. I mean, Coach Izzo put Trey Holloman at that point guard position in that second half of the ball game and let him run the show. He had 27 minutes in the Rutgers game. And then in this game against Maryland, 26 minutes on the road, 3 of 4 from the three-point line. He's a floor stretcher. He doesn't over-dribble. He doesn't take bad shots. He just understands his role, and he does his job to the maximum effort. He defends at a high level. You go to that last play of the game, Jameer Young is one of the best point guards, not just in the Big Ten, but in the country. Trey Holloman backpedaling, keeping the ball in front, game on the line. He needs to get a stop for Michigan State to go home with a win. He picks Jameer Young's pocket like he was a little kid. When Trey Holloman gets 6 or more points, according to our producers, Michigan State is 9-0 this season.
Yeah, that's stats research right there. That's the fact. And for Maryland, this was an opportunity gone awry because the Terps needed this win. They need to protect their home floor. They're not great on the road. They have some tough road trips coming up. Tough L for Kevin Willard and the Terps at home. Penn State, Ohio State Part 2 works out much better for the Buckeyes than did Part 1. Remember, when they went to State College early in the year, they led by 18 at the half, let it slip away. Not so much in this one. They're able to snap that 3-game losing streak. They do a really nice job on the inside. And I know it's a little bit of a combination, but you're a big fan of what Chris Holtmann can do with that mix and match in the paint of Felix Okpara and Zed Key.
Yeah, you got to find a way to win basketball games in the Big Ten, especially on the road when you don't shoot it well from deep, because road guys and freshmen shoot better at home. So when you leave your home gym and go on the road, if that ball doesn't go in, you still got to give yourself a chance to win the game. And if you tell Buckeye fans before the Penn State game, Bruce Thornton was going to have 3 points, 1 of 9 from the field, they don't think they lose that game, because the last 3 games going into that Penn State game, they were on a 3-game losing streak. They were shooting 22% from the three-point line, and they were taking a bunch of threes. They were minus 10 inside. You could tell Coach Holtmann, Coach Owens, and those guys got into the locker room, and they told those guys, score the ball inside, work inside out, because they were plus 16 in the paint against Penn State, 40 points in the paint against Penn State, and you mentioned it. You look at Zed Key, Felix Okpara, and you sandwich their numbers together over the course of 40 minutes. They got them 18 points, 17 rebounds, 2 blocks. They need that type of production.
I think Chris Holtmann's doing a phenomenal job. I know they just went through a 3-game losing streak. I think, Rayfeld, people forget about how much roster turnover and change this team has been through the last couple of years.
And they got a bunch of guys, although Jamison Battle's experienced, and you think about it coming in as an older guy, he hasn't won at a high level in the Big Ten. So they got a lot of guys that don't have a lot of winning experience. That's why when you're up 18 on the road at Penn State, guys aren't used to being up on the road at 18, and they start to relax. They start to take bad shots. They don't get in winning time moment. And you give a team like a Penn State an inch of breath, an inch of life, that's when you get those comebacks. But these guys are going to learn throughout the course of the season how to win, especially on the road.
Penn State's going to get somebody else that they're not, quote-unquote, supposed to beat the rest of the way, just wasn't Ohio State this past weekend. Really important game for both Northwestern and Nebraska.
Yep.
And the good news for the Huskers in this one, it was at Pinnacle Bank Arena, where they are a really tough out, just like Northwestern's a really tough out at Welsh Ryan. Keisei Tominaga hits a big late three for the Huskers to be able to win this one. I think this was a game, and I know it's the middle of January, it's not early March yet. I think this was a game the Huskers had to have to be part of that conversation in March.
And you could tell how connected they were on both ends of the floor, that game meant a lot to them. You have 5 guys in double figures. Juwan Gary had just went down, and you have people counting out Nebraska already after losing just Juwan Gary. Josiah Alec was big-time energy-wise. He gave them 15 points, 5 rebounds, had a lot of different contributors, but they had 18 assists on their 26 field goals, shot the ball 55% from 3, 7 of 13 from the three-point line. And although they turned it over 18 times, which is terrible to do, you won't win many games doing it, they were plus 14 in the class and dominated Northwestern there.
And for Northwestern, to me, Raphael, this is a monster week for the Wildcats because you have a rare week. We have 2 home games. You have Illinois coming to your barn on Wednesday, Ohio State on Saturday. This is a week where the Wildcats have to make some hay after losing on the road.
Yeah, for sure. You need Boo Buie to be Boo Buie this week. Boo Buie on the road, 2 of 15 from the field, 9 points. That's not going to win you a lot of games. So I expect Boo to get off the canvas, get into the gym. I expect him to have a huge game against Illinois at home in front of that sold-out crowd. That's going to be a big-time game because Illinois may be top 10 coming into that gym. They can get that one. That'll help Northwestern a lot because you look at their metrics. The net doesn't like them. Ken Pond doesn't like them because they don't blow teams out. They just win games. But the best way to grow up through that net, continue to win games, get the games at home, and then try to win your games on the road.
See, what Raphael just did in the industry, we call a professional television segue because it's time for one final break on Big Ten Today. But when we come back, we offer a sneak peek at some upcoming games in league play. And you may have guessed one of them, yes, the in-state showdown between the Illini and Wildcats. Take a peek at your weekly Big Ten men's schedule. Tripleheader on Tuesday. Wednesday, we have a doubleheader. Both games right here on Big Ten Network. Finish things off on Friday with Michigan State on the road to take on the Badgers. Seems to be a commonality there that Madison on Friday night's the place to be for Big Ten basketball. As we welcome Raphael Davis back into the mix. And we start with that Ohio State-Nebraska game because we talked about how important the weekend wins were for both these teams. Ohio State on the road at Penn State, Nebraska taking care of business at home against Northwestern. What's the key when you look at the matchup between the Buckeyes and Huskers?
If Ohio State can continue to dominate inside, because I look at the guard matchups, I look at Ohio State, Bruce Thornton, Roddy Gale, I give them the edge there over Jamarcus Lauren and Keisei Tominaga on both sides of the floor. Because you look at Penn State, and you look at Ace Baldwin, Kanye Clary, and you look at them against Ohio State, Bruce Thornton, Roddy Gale, they were 9 of 27 from the field on 23 points, and those are 2 of the best attacking guards in the league. So it's going to come down to inside. You look at Felix Akpara and Zed Key, they've got to win that matchup against Rick Mass. And then a guy like Evan Mahaffey, he has 16 and 5 against Penn State. He's got to produce on the road. He can't go invisible because if you're Ohio State right now, you're on the outside of Mike DeCourcy's bracket. You got to get you a road win against an NCAA quality team to get back in.
Mahaffey, I think, was a little bit motivated playing against his former team. Also, we wait on the news of Juwan Gary. We thought it was really bad when it happened, maybe an Achilles. Instead, it's a mild calf strain. Will he be back on Tuesday against Ohio State? And then we move ahead to Wednesday. It's that midweek matchup between the Illini and the Wildcats. You can see it right here on Big Ten Network as part of our Wednesday doubleheader. This is a tough ask, I think, for Northwestern because Illinois is going to be feeling a little bit of a boost with the return of Terrence Shannon Jr. to the lineup.
Yeah, Northwestern struggles with athleticism. Northwestern has got to find a way, take care of the basketball, control the pace of the game, and compete on the glass. Illinois can't be upwards 15, plus 20 on the glass, and Northwestern expects to win. Matt Nicholson is going to be big time in this game. He's going to have to move those puppies, keep the basketball in front, because Coleman Hawkins, Ty Rogers, they can go right around you off the bounce. I expect Terrence Shannon to have a big one, but Boo Boo just struggled at Nebraska. He's back home. He's comfortable. He's a fifth year. They're building a statue of Boo Boo. He's got to have a big one.
Okay, everything you said over the last 59 minutes and 15 seconds was true. They are not building a Boo Boo statue, at least not yet in Evanston. For Raphael, I'm Rick. Thanks for hanging with us on this edition of Big Ten Today.